So hello and welcome to our webinar on privacy and ethics in extended reality and artificial intelligence. While people are joining in, I will start since we have a quite packed agenda for today with a couple of very interesting impulse talks on the diverse topics that you have noted in the agenda and during the registration process. Together with my colleague Martin Rucker, the coordinator of THEIA-XR, it is a pleasure to host this meeting today, and I welcome all participants and speakers of the projects participating in this event. My name is Gerald Fritzmeier, and I will guide you through this intense and packed webinar. Housekeeping rules. So this webinar will be recorded. And please note that the result will be used on our website and social media as well. All participants are muted by default. And please, I urge you to post all your questions in the webinar chat. Each speaker will answer the questions either during the event or we will come back to you afterwards via email, and the email address you provided during the registration process. Now, let's jump in. As you can see, we have 5 individual impulse talks of 7 minutes approximately. At the end of these talks, we will have the opportunity to answer your questions in a Q&A session. Our first speaker is Anastasia Segeva from the THEIA-XR project. She's a research scientist on the Center of Security, Reliability and Trust at the University of Luxembourg. Anastasia, the floor is yours.
Hello, can you hear me? Everything working? Okay, so I hope so. If not working, just tell me. Yes, brilliant. I will share my screen now and I'll briefly talk about next 7 minutes of the things we did in the project. I am extremely happy to say that I see in the chat a lot of people who work with me in this project on this specific land security, privacy, ethical part. So also if you have any questions forward, I will be also happy to somehow rearrange these questions to all our team, and I'll be happy if we can answer the questions. So now I share my screen. So we named our talk as a Preserving Ethics and Privacy in Zone and Industrial Extended Reality. We will talk about our use case. And for me, the most important point in the moment is that it's becoming really dawn or industrial extended reality because, for example, this week we visited United XR conference, and it was a pleasure to me to see not just one but multiple projects which are really talking about put XR into industrial domain, mostly in the case of education, but it also can be possible to make this case more extended to education and to use it to really work in practice. So we are in an important moment in time now for these topics. And of course, when we go into these topics, we need to have any certain considerations in mind when we're talking about them. So, but basically, I would like to maybe start from the sort of provoking question. So when we say something ethical or unethical, what we usually take in mind when we're speaking about it. Because, of course, in our, let's say, European view, then we're thinking about ethical, we're mostly thinking about ethics of human rights, about the way we understand other people and try to act toward other people the way we hope other people will act with us. But technically, ethics is a very broad concept, and when we're talking about, we need also to take into account this will be different in cultural ethics, different professional ethics, different situations where we can apply different ethical rules. So then we started to talk about, let's say, combined general ethics we can apply towards our topics in industry. It's always a very big question, what exactly should be the lines or guidelines which we can apply in this context. And if we're talking about ethics, very close towards our domain, talks about interactions of spaces, of systems, we can say that, well, let's try to divide the unethicality of the spaces of interactions into 3 domains. And of course, some of them is a problematic design that somebody specifically designed as evil design. I will not talk about it that much today. But also sometimes we're talking about a situation that somebody designed something badly because of lack of knowledge or because this exactly the things that you can have one ethical system in mind, but the person with whom you interact and have completely different system. So then we talk about a specific unethicality. Again, I will not talk about it today, but for example, things like that. Yes, we see it a lot in the commercial practices and companies trying to put people to buy something which people don't want to buy, which call it deceptive designs. And I'm happy to say it's not our problem in industrial domain. We don't care because usually in our case, we not try to have all these manipulative techniques to persuade participants or persuade our workers to do something. But these other 2 things are still here. So we can have some interfaces that were created the way they were created because we don't know what can be done differently, or we didn't take into account this misalignment. And the problem here, instead of having these manipulative designs in general senses, problem come from different angle. And the problem is that when we talk about workplace, in some cases, it has some properties which can provoke unethicality by a very straightforward reason, because we have this imbalance of power in the workplace. We're not treating our colleagues all the time as humans, but for example, we have supervisor and we have people who just need to follow their certain orders from supervisor. So of course we try to apply best practices, but we know this not everybody in organization, not everybody in a company have the same level of power or the same level of command. And in this case, it creates this additional things which can happen in workplace, but not happens, well, less extent happens externally. For example, it can be harassment, it can be surveillance, it can be abuse and supervision, or some other moral erosion things in a sense, my supervisor doing things one way, and that's why I'll also do it this way, even if I feel it's a bit not the right way to do. Again, it's normal. It happens with companies, it happens with organizations, and organizations usually fight against it very intensively. But because organization is a place where power is not distributed equally, we always could have situation like that. And then what I would like to say here about XR features, of course, what we wanted to do, we wanted to bring our technologies in this workplace to basically heal the problems, to try to make it more transparent, more ethical, more open, more human-like for all the people participated in that. But what we need to be afraid of is exactly opposite. For example, can we create something which aggravate the problems? For example, we are already talking about that workplace sometimes provokes surveillance as a thing, but maybe if we put all these extended reality features, which can collect more data on the workplace, we make the surveillance problem even more serious. So this actually create for us this problem. And what we want to do, well, of course, we need to take this balance between what we try to do, of course, and our main biggest guidelines here, of course, is human rights. But we also need to understand that in the workplace, we have different stakeholders with different interests and different ethics, including business ethics and, well, some desire to receive ethically, but receive in a profit, for example. And we need to balance it somehow. So maybe very obvious things, but how can we do that? And in this case, I would like to talk next 4 minutes about our project. So we have THEIA-XR, a lot of people here for the project here. I'm super happy that you are joining us. And it's a project about off-highway machinery. So basically, it's a big, huge, very interesting vehicles, which can be used in different contexts, for example, for construction site. Or we have snow groomers, so machines who just polish the snow on the slopes for the skiers. And you can understand that in these conditions, of course, the work is very difficult, and we can definitely have opportunities to make this work better, to make it efficient, we can make it engaging, make it safer. So really, the THEIA-XR is not just some fancy idea, it's really straightforward use case. However, how we can really do it something without creating the caveats. So that's what we did. We started from privacy by design approach because, of course, usually when we start about talking about ethics, 95% of time people talking about privacy, which becoming a bit boring, but we're working out of that. But then we realize that, yes, I see time. When we realize it should be a bit more value sensitive. So we go to the values and we try to understand how the values in people works. And in this case, we ended up with certain guiding principles which can be used for creating these implementations. So I briefly talk about it, how it looks like. We finalize the guidelines. It's only 7 of them. And we try to place sort of principles where we apply these guidelines. And on the reverse side, we explain how you can really do that in your real practices. Why only 7? Well, we try to do it because we know a lot of very good projects, European projects, including I know some people here in the watching this webinar, working on the guiding principles, high-level principles. And also, I, for example, saw them works which ended up with 22 principles, with 30 principles, and so on. We try to keep it very small, that person can really apply it from the very beginning. When we try to talk about things you can apply from the start of your project. So, okay, here are the 7 things. If you keep them in start of your project, it will definitely make less difficult to troubleshooting it later on if you have any things on that. What I wanted to say in the end, if you want to look on them closer, just send us a message. We will have it on the website very soon. Now it's a previous version, but if you want to have it right now, send us a message. We will send you the guidelines, help us to evaluate them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anastasia. Now, juggling a little bit with the windows, I'm happy to announce Mr. Peter Pickelbauer as our next speaker. He represents the AI Factory Austria and is part of the AIT AI Ethics Labs. Having said that, I will hand over to Mr. Pickelbauer.
Thank you, Gerald. Indeed, I have 3 different hats on. You can see them; they're invisible, but they're there. I'm leading the AIT AI Ethics Lab, which we are running since 5 years now, and I'm the deputy head of the AI task force at AIT, and I'm responsible for ethics in the AI factory in Austria. And it's basically all about ethics. And honestly, I have a theory. My theory is most people try to be good. I don't know if you agree, but that's my personal standpoint on it. When I'm looking at people, the problem, of course, begins then always, as Anastasia has been pointing out already in her talk. If you're looking on the fine print, so what is good? Because good is in different cultures and in different times even, and in different sectors, and for different people might be different things. Having said that, when we are talking about doing good or being ethical in terms of AI, then we have a number of issues already at hand that we can use. There is, as Anastasia has been already pointing to a bit, there is these European discussions on the high level expert group of the European Commission on AI, which led directly into the AI Act and became part of it in different areas of it. And there we have these principles that everybody has been talking about, which is, of course, privacy, but there's also transparency, and there's also explainability, and there is human autonomy, which is really important. I guess also in your case, in heavy machinery. There is fairness, social and ecological sustainability. Now, these are broad terms, and there have been whole books written about each of them. So the problem that we are facing in the factory, which exists now since since about half a year, and we're still building up the services. There is how to apply them. Oh, I should add, for those of you who have no idea what the AI factories are, this is a program of the European Union where you have a co-funding of national and European Union funds. There is 19 factories that have been selected over the course of the year. The last batch was selected in end of October, and there is a dozen antenna factories. And the idea of the factories basically is that we should support European organizations, first of all, small and medium enterprises and startups, but also larger companies. They probably will have to pay for some of the services, but also science and public authorities with computing power, with training, with consultancy services, and things like that. So, and we're going up to, that's also important, we're going up to proof of concept. So in terms of how near to the market are we allowed to go? At the moment, the point is we are going to proof of concept, which is already some steps from having just an idea. So coming back to the AI factory, which has, as you could already see, a number of different focus groups, organizations and sectors we are targeting. So it is unlikely that we have the same ethical background in all of these sectors and organizations, some of which are for-profit and some of which are non-profit, etc. So what we are doing is we are simply going to the European, we are looking towards the European discussions that we have been seeing in the last couple of years. I was alluding to the high-level expert group and the AI Act. And we are orienting ourselves on these. So what we are trying to do is we are working with our constituency. We're working with our clients. At the moment, we have in Austria 10 startups, which we are having on our premises, and we're working with them on different ideas. And we are offering training. We already had trainings in legal questions and also ethical questions. There will be a second round for those of you in Austria in January of those. And besides totally different topics which are technical and other things which are the focus of the AI factory, of course. And we are producing those things that you also have been doing in the project. Although I should say, I think this what Anastasia has been pointing out, how you have been doing this, looks very impressive. I think this was very interesting how you have been doing it. To go over empirical methods is always the best way how to do that, and to look at the values that are there. So we're doing checklists, and we are going to have a board. We are going to work also with multiplying organizations. And one thing which I would like to add also is, because we're having this question again and again, we are combining ethical and legal people in one team. Also in the lab, I have also a lawyer as a colleague, and often the discussion is, well, the law is not ethical necessarily, and ethics is not legal for 100% by necessity. Thing is, I think there should be some kind of reverberance with both. There should be a similar kind of thinking, even if it's not a one-to-one, obviously between law and ethics. And also, frankly, it makes me a little bit more sure when we're thinking about things like the digital omnibus that we're just having at hand at the moment. As you might have noticed, in the European Union, the United States administration, the recent one, has been leaning heavily on the Commission and so have been part of industry, and now they are pulling back some of the regulations of the AI Act, or they tried to at least. The Commission has been doing a first effort to do so, and they are in negotiation now with the Council and with the European Parliament, and we'll see what comes out of that in August. But the questions that we often are getting is, now what's happening now? Now we thought we have the AI Act, and now we have the Digital Omnibus. So what is, in industry, what should we do? Should we wait, or should we go for something? I see you popping up, Ingrid. Does it mean 7 minutes are over?
Yes, correctly.
Okay, then just let me have a final sentence. And so my answer normally is, and on the ethical side, I don't care, because the problems are staying the same. And if you would like to do good, then it will be nice if you have, if you're valuing privacy, if you're thinking about transparency, and if your solutions, the technical solutions, are robust. And it's just the level of measures that you are employing that are called for by a hard law like the AI Act that makes a difference. But the preparation to what you have to do if you would like to go out on the market in Europe should be along similar lines. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Piegelbauer. These are valuable thoughts and insights on that. And I already see first questions coming up in the chat. So previous speakers can already start answering them if they find their topic represented in the question. Well, 7 minutes are really rushing through, and our next speaker will be Ilya Illich. He's I'm on the wrong slide. Now this one is the right one. He is an innovation specialist at Austrian Standard. I'm really eager to hear about the role of the standardization bodies within that context. Ilya, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Do you mind if I share my own slides, because I've updated them, reviewing again the content?
Start.
Okay, perfect.
Just
Thank
do
you.
it.
Thank you very much. So let me know if you can see them perfectly. I think so. So yeah, everybody. Hi, my name is Ilya. I'm from Austrian Standards. I'm a research and innovation specialist and work in different research projects funded by the EU, but also outside of the EU context. And one of them is Code for EV, where we also take the AI and ethics seriously in the electronic vehicles, basically. And I want to take you basically on a quick sprint through the world of standardization. We've heard right now the vital importance of ethics right now. But the big question that I also get in my role quite often from companies, from developers, from designers is, okay, but how do we actually do this? How do we actually build that? And my goal today is just to give you some quick overview that standards are not just paperwork, but they're engineering instructions for ethics. So let me start with giving you a quick overview of Austrian Standards. Austrian Standards has been a service center for standardization, technical rules, and technical law since the 20s, serving business, public administration, and the society. We enable participation on national, but also European and international level for standardization. And we provide access to the ÖNORM standards, which is the national Austrian standards, but also to national regulation, as well as European and international standards are within these activities. And among other, we also have additional other services based on the foundation of standards. So if we think about why should you care about standards, especially international and European standards, we will come across the term CEN and ISO often in this little webinar impulse talk of mine. And we've heard about some regulational acts already, for instance, the EU AI Act, but we also have the GDPR, ethical principles, transparency, and fairness. So this is basically a high-level requirement. And on the other hand, we have the reality is we have engineers, we have designers, we have hardware companies, we have risk assessment and risk management for ethics and AI. And somehow we need to align these two components basically. And one tool for that is standardization. Basically, on European level, we have so-called harmonized standards, and those standards are essentially presumption of conformity. I wrote it down, the magic words, but basically a regulation can quote a standard in the law, for instance, and say, in order for you to keep up with the with this law, with this regulation, in order to comply with it, you need to apply this standard. So basically, if we use standards as a tool to put the requirements or the goal, for instance, the EU AI Act into action, we can use a standard for that, translating be fair, so to say, or be ethical, to a test for bias using methodology X, for instance, or terminology, whatever the standard is saying. So in this quick overview, I also wanted to share with you who is who, basically, in a world of standardization, because it can become quickly an abstract field. So on an international level, we have, so to say, ISO/IEC, which is the International Standardization Organization, and then the IEC is the Electrotechnical Committees. And the technical foundation, for instance, for AI management system is set by ISO/IEC JTC1, the SC42. So basically, it develops on an international scale the best practices. CEN-CENELEC is a European network for standardization, and they're the regulatory filter. As I already said, we have different acts, for instance, the EU AI Act, and what CEN-CENELEC is trying to do is basically make the standards compliant with the current regulation that we are faced right now. And then, for instance, on national level, we have like us, Austrian standards, but also in different countries, we have different national standardization bodies. We do the national adaptation of the EN, the European standard, in a national language and in support also of national needs and alignment with CEN and ISO. On the European network, for instance, CEN-CENELEC JTC21 is the current group writing the AI Act standard. Now let's go over through the management and the design, basically. We have different levels of the standards, for instance, when it comes to ethics and privacy. On one hand, we have the ISO/IEC 42001, which is basically a certified management system for AI. Think about ISO 9001, if some of you know it, on AI level. And then on the other hand, we have the design level. So basically, okay, how do we engineer those things? How do we basically process the requirements? So we have there, I'm not going to say the long name because you can all read it here, but this is basically what we try to do as a value-based engineering standard, from system requirements to ethical values. And actually, what is really, really nice that Austrian Standards is one of the first, so to say, certification bodies, also training bodies that developed a value-based engineering ambassador certification, because we already tried to put those theoretical standards, theoretical perspectives into practice. Hence why I said it's not just paperwork, it's the how-to guides on how to do different things. So now let's talk about the extended reality specifics. What is privacy in an immersive world? We have also here different standards, for instance, also based on past experiences. The ISO/IEC is 30,700 is privacy by design. We have also the MPG standards for immersive media coding and biometrics, quality of facial and iris data. So in extended reality, eye tracking is not just input, it's biometric identification. And the standard here is basically setting the requirements, what is okay and what is not okay, based on different regulation and based on different law. And to wrap up quickly my little impulse talk to summarize, standards bridge law and tech or development. If you're interested in that, I highly recommend looking into ISO 40001 for governance. And also we try to already put into standards current things like value-based engineering for design. And I was thinking, okay, what can I give you as a core message? And mine was, don't wait for the lawsuit, engineer ethics today. And with that, I would like to conclude my impulse talk. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I'm sure our contact details will be shared afterwards, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for bringing this view on the standardization side, and also give the contact details to catch up later on for all participants. Next in the line will be on ethical issues in XR applications based on the digital twin, a talk given by Irma Poder from Trilateral Research, representing the project Dynamos, which is a sister project of THEIA-XR. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me share the screen. So, can you see the screen?
Yes,
with
if you go to presentation mode now, it's fine. Thank you.
Yes, great. So I'm Irma Poder, a senior research analyst at Trilateral Research, and I've been acting as the ethics advisor in the THEIA-XR project. And I want to maybe talk a bit more practically about some of the ethical issues that we came across that are specific to digital twins and the XR applications based on that. So just to explain a bit about what creating digital twins looks like, and what I mean by digital twin is a digital replica of a real life object or scene, and it's more dynamic than a 3D model of that scene or object would be, because it is synchronized to the real world. So, and this can be used as basis for advanced applications. And I've included here a little picture of one of the digital twins that we did in the Didymos project, which is of a German town called Etteln. And it's the digitized representations of the actual town, and it can be used for representing other real life scenes as well, such as public spaces or machinery, different processes. So lots of opportunities to make digital twins and use them for extended reality applications. But obviously this comes with a lot of ethical issues. So some of the big ethical issues that we experienced in the projects are around the capture, because creating high fidelity digital twins requires a lot of accurate images of the real life scene. So we want to make sure that it's functional in different lighting conditions. If we're thinking about the city, then also do we want to think about when is a kind of leafy time of year? Can we get a better capture of the buildings in winter or autumn when there's less trees in the way? Do we lose some of the functionality if we only capture at daytime and then we don't reflect some of the lighting conditions at nighttime? And also including lots of different sensors to kind of create the full picture. Do we want to include, I don't know, traffic lights? Do we want to include air pollution control, weather sensors? So lots of different types of things that we want to put in there to make it accurate. But this can also create or infringe upon people's feeling of privacy through constant capture. So managing the fears around privacy or feelings around rights to privacy while making something that is useful and innovative, because we don't want to hinder that, but finding that balance is what we were trying to manage then in the project. Because when we're creating something that is high fidelity and really has that kind of realness to it, people can also become maybe too trusting of the application because it looks real, so therefore it must be real, right? But then also finding the balance of knowing exactly what the limitations of the applications are and what is the intended use of the application, and knowing those limitations is what we were trying to build into the application, whether by some kind of disclaimer or training, or providing kind of clear guidelines of what it can and can't be used for. So like I mentioned, lots of different sensors also opens a lots of doors for kind of out of date or out of sync input that can then lead to kind of incorrect decisions or incorrect judgments made based on those inaccurate kind of interventions. So really updating the digital twin requires a lot of manual input, and it's important, again, going back to the realness of the application and over relying on kind of digital solutions, then became one of the challenges of how do we set up the protocols and make sure that we are actually up to date. And also maybe highlighting here one of the unique privacy issues in digital twins that comes from the live updates. It's that it gives so much more context around what's going on. So in this little car picture that we have here, you can't see the license plate, so it should be anonymized, right? But if you're a local and you know that this is the I don't know, waste management facility or whatever this is, and you know that the boss actually here drives a white car, then that gives so much more context if you're kind of using this application to maybe monitor of, is the boss there, is the boss not? So this is also something to think about. Do we want to replace the car and use an icon or something? So lots of things to consider around the real-time synchronization and the updates, and the possibilities that allows in terms of managing the city, but also the risks that then come with it. And alongside that, the ethical issues around the data integration, because there are a lot of different heterogeneous sensors. The file formats are really different, and that's then leads to unharmonized ways of representing the objects virtually, and incompatible across different locations, different sectors. So different cities might collect the data differently. So that leads to lots of different ways of doing the digital twin, and then also leading to inefficiencies. And if you have to constantly retrain the models that are responsible for creating the digital twins, then that adds a lot of processing power, environmental impact. So also something we want to consider when creating the models and the tools for the digital twin creation, how that what's the kind of long-term value of it, and to make something that is truly valuable and useful. And maybe to summarize some of the learnings from the Didymos project that I want to highlight, and what were the kind of best parts around or what we took away from our experience, was that the shortcomings in the applications and the ethical issues come from a lack of engagement with the target audience, so not taking on board their suggestions, again coming back to making something that's useful or valuable. And to meaningfully mitigate ethical issues within the application, they have to be translated into technical requirements, which requires a lot of dialogue with the technical experts. So that's where the actual actioning of the ethical risk comes from. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irma. I know it's hard to
yes.
to be within the time frame. Our next speaker represents an European digital innovation hub called AI5 Innovation, and I'm pleased to directly hand over to Bernhard Nessler from Software Competence Center Hagenberg. Please, Bernhard.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I want to present to you today a little bit of an idea that might seem provocative, and I would be more than willing to discuss about that. So the problem that I will present is the human oversight in view of a superhuman AI. Very quickly to my background, I'm from the Software Competence Center Hagenberg, which is a non-universitarian research center in close to Linz, founded by the Johannes Kepler University in Linz. Our main task is to take and to cooperate with universities on basic research and to bring that basic research to industry. So we are the, so to say, binding element. My research group is on intelligent systems and certification of AI. We are a truly interdisciplinary research group. I think this is very valuable at these times, of basic researchers in machine learning and basic researchers in legal law. And I'm very proud of that, that we managed to have a real group of both disciplines together. And my background, in addition, is computational neuroscience, which is my PhD. So I really care about what the brain does, so the working of the human brain and the interaction between artificial intelligence and the brain. So with that, I want to come to the topic itself. So we are working on AI certification together with TÜV and the JKU already since 2019. We have developed in that time a very sophisticated catalog of more than, in the meantime, it's even more than 120 machine learning specific questions with specific requirements and descriptions and comments for the auditor. Our recent new white paper from September of this year is available from the TÜV website if you want to see it. And the principles of that certification are that, so to say, if you want to develop ethical AI systems, then foremost you have to develop a system that is on the technically that is technically correct, so that is technically developed on the state-of-the-art technology, and such that you know for every design decision why you take it, and you don't just do not just take it because it's convenient to decide this way because you know this one technology and do not know another one. Based on a risk analysis, we come to minimum performance requirements, and then the core of the whole certification that we developed is valid statistical tests in order to guarantee the functional trustworthiness, where performance means everything that could be measured functionally on that system. Of course, the topics of the catalog cover the wide range from business cases analysis to risk analysis and so on, biases, fairness, up to OOD detection, so out of distribution detection, domain shift, uncertainty, and of course also human oversight. And we thought about the problem, what does human oversight really mean? What do we really mean from an ethical point of view with human oversight? In view of, and I will talk about that, a superhuman AI system, so a system that performs significantly better than all humans. What does the UI Act say to that? It's rather, yeah, without commenting it too much, I just say that the high-risk AI system shall be such that human oversight can be exerted by deciding in any particular situation to just disregard, override, or reverse the output of the high-risk AI system. Is this the correct way to deal with that? I just want to set this in question now for discussion. So, in order that we know about what we are talking, if we are discussing about superhuman AI, and what is superhuman AI? I don't talk about language models, of course, or ChatGPT. No, this is not superhuman AI. I talk about, for example, multi-class skin cancer image classification. So this is one field in which superhuman AI is already there. That's why I take this as an example. So from a publication, it's already years ago, so that's not totally new. Trained on some 10,000 images, not million images, just 10,000 images is mostly sufficient. And testing on ground truth that is certified and verified by biopsy, and so on. For these 5 diagnoses, I don't go into those details. And you see already from that confusion matrix here that the diagnosis from the convolutional neural network, I don't also go into the details of the network. You see here that the correct classification is much more present from the CNN, so from the AI diagnosis, than from real dermatologists. So they took in that study 112, so not just 10, but 112 dermatologists from 13 different German clinics. So this is not nothing. This is just the observable state of the art of human medicine. Now to illustrate the results a little bit more clear, we take the ROC curves, and we see that for all the different 5 different diagnoses, these are the 5 different specific cases, and this is the one mean case. The result of the humans is significantly worse than any result that you can get from the AI system. If you just differentiate not for the 5 diagnoses, but for benign versus malignant carcinomas, then it's even more clear. I mean, the AI is just way better and way more reliable with accuracies about 95% in the relevant regions than accuracies about 60% of humans. So how do we deal with that in view of human oversight? What does this mean? So we have, for our catalog, thought about that, and we found out that it cannot be that a doctor just gets a result and says, I don't like this result. I think, no, the CNN, the AI system is wrong. My decision is worth more, and I decide that I treat that patient as with my diagnosis. This cannot be the ethically correct method of designing an AI system. So we have the ethical necessity to guarantee the most optimal diagnosis on that patient. So allowing a human just to disregard as the AI access, override, or reverse the output would introduce an unacceptable risk of reducing the diagnostic quality. So our way out of that was, okay, we cannot just disregard the result of the AI. We have to precisely define in which situations the AI is really measured and obviously superior to human. And the human can only decide if that patient, if that diagnosis case lies within the domain of expertise. One more slide to that, and then I'm done. In the foreseeable future, we have now to think about the next step. So we could have very soon also an AI system that is also trained to decide if a sample, in view of all metadata, all context information, lies within the stochastic application domain, so within the domain of correct working of the and certified working of the system. And then we might run into a future where it is even unethical to allow the exertion of human oversight that disregards, overrides, or reverses the decision of certain superhuman AI systems. So the provocative thesis in that context is, if an AI system is certified by overwhelming statistical evidence to have a superior performance than the best human deciders, then we cannot allow, for ethical reasons, that this system's decision to be overruled by a single human. A way out, of course, would be, okay, the human is always allowed to change the context, the description of the case, such that it can convince the AI that the case lies differently than the AI thought up to that point. So that's my thought about superhuman AI and ethical human oversight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernhard. A really tough question if you have to think through whether an AI system is inferior of a human decision-making process and how to decide whom to trust.
I did not yet mention, but think about that now in the context of self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Just provoke a little bit.
Yeah. Either you drive in the group or you drive through the ethical dilemma that was discussed. also in the past on that. If you could stop sharing your slides, Bernhard, all the speakers could then switch on the cameras, since we are now at the Q&A session. And I'm a little bit unhappy that we only have 10 minutes left for the Q&A. We have received many questions in the chat. A couple of them have already pre-answered, and now it's a very challenging task to judge and select one of these individual questions, which is really hard for me. I will prioritize not any of them. I will select one by chance. If you feel unrepresented, please let us know in the chat. One particular question turned out to be interesting in the sense that I think we have touched it in the input stock of the project, and I will read it through. How can we assure that biometric data collected through XR devices remains under the user's control, and how do we ensure informed consent is truly informed when XR devices collect data continuously and sometimes passively? When it comes to biometric data, I think this is really... Anastasia, you are shaking your head.
I mean, it's a super important question, yes. And I mean, from my side, honest answer will be, well, we don't know fully yet, in a sense. And I think it's maybe in several ways of going it. I think, of course, I just say towards and maybe drop this question more to the people who's working on standardization and the legal side of that. But let's say let me answer from the educational point of view. I think we also still have this very little understanding in general population about how these things works, what they can collect, what they can't collect, and how you can interact with it. And at least I see some good progress, at least in the understanding of a privacy in media, for example, last 20 years. So I hope then people more understanding how these features work, and the features will be properly labeled as something collected. Maybe understanding will be higher, but in the moment it's really very gray area, at least from my point of view. But I think probably Irma or Ilya can say more on this side.
Bernhard.
Yeah, I would like to propose one thing. I mean, if this data, the problem only arises, in my opinion, if the data is sent further to a cloud, to AI methods in the cloud of very big providers and so on. But if you keep that data locally in that machine where it is collected and processed locally with local on-device methods and never transferred to anywhere else, then I think one could reduce that risk to a very, very confined thing. And there give, of course, the user then possibilities to also delete it.
Well, Peter Pickelbauer wants warm ice cream on that, so I guess you have a different opinion concerning biometrics and privacy. Can you elaborate on that?
I'm not a technician, so I should shut up.
No.
But it sounds to me a little bit like a difficult problem, and you cannot have both. And I think we are doing this already with brand new technology, that we are balancing the pros and the cons, and we'll have to keep on doing that. And I agree with Bernhard that you can reduce risks, and this is what we should try to do. But it will never be possible to sensibly minimize the risk to zero in this question. I think it also wouldn't make sense, because otherwise there's no innovation anymore. I'm saying this as the ethical guy here, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that comment.
Yeah, and this week apparently we were with the THEIA project participating in the United XR conference, and in the exhibition area we had the opportunity to try out one or the other innovative solution in that area. And so many cameras, there's so many facial tracking, so many body tracking. This can all be subsumized under biometrical data to some extent, and that do not. It's really hard to think about how the user at the end controls those data while using this innovation. But let's see and be positive for the future. Another question I wanted to raise here is and it is a little bit related to that. How do we translate THEIA-XR ethics and privacy consideration into technical executions while keeping our competitive edge sharp? And I think this is also related to what is Europe doing with all the regulations, with the different acts that are imposed on European companies and industries and large enterprises compared to the global, I would say, world, the global market, US, and also other economic areas, since all of our enterprises are acting and selling their products not only for the European market, but also globally. Who wants to start? Austrian standards, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question, to be honest, and this is what we're trying to do in any given topic. I think the challenging part right now with new tech and innovations right now is we don't see the full outcome yet of where it's going to be used, how it's going to be used, what is the impact of it. Hence why it's sometimes challenging to translate things into practicality. But at least from our side, what we're trying to do is to see how current standards are supporting innovations related to a certain goal, for instance, how these practices already can be put into use when developing something new. So I think this is a first step to ensure ethics and privacy as well. And on the other hand, I think, and this is also something that we do, is to bring different parts of different communities together and have a conversation about this, because in the end we facilitate the process and we try to guide through a process, and we are aware that standardization needs to be faster in order to adapt of the pace of new tech development. But I think despite all the technological elements and developments in AI and in extended reality, we cannot forget that in the end the best ideas come together when humans come together and have a conversation together and try to solve a problem and see what the opportunities are given a certain framework. So to give you a philosophical answer, but there is no definite answer.
Thank you, Ilya, for these words, and I think it's also appreciated by other speakers. Well, let me conclude, since we have 2 minutes left, and I'm really sorry that we cannot continue the discussion and the Q&A session any longer, in order to keep in the 1 hour time slots that we have foreseen for this webinar. We will continue our journey in all of the projects that are represented here, and also in the projects of the participants. And we are happy to connect with all of you on social media, and also the upcoming events, either face-to-face or online. I would like to thank all participants for the interest in our webinar. Thanks to all the projects who have participated and provided content. Thanks especially the speakers who contributed to this event. Many thanks to Amengo Innovate for the organizational setup and your support, Ingrid, on so many levels to make this happen. As I said, let's continue and push the topic of privacy and ethics, not only in our project, but also in a broader awareness in the public. Yeah, having said that, finally, I would wish you, your significant others, your family and friends, Merry Christmas, and let's continue the networking. Having said that, we wish you all a great day.